Spanish-speaking congregations. As you know, the population of that area continues to grow. Members of the church are some of those that are now coming into the United States, and those churches gather those folks up as well. And so that's where most of our efforts are, on the stateside part of that, in what's called the McAllen Mission area of Texas. Alton is where the main church is that we always go to as we begin our works. We've been going down there now, as I said in the sermon, for about 20 years. And that was through the help of the influence of Jerry Pyle, Jerry and Joe Nell, and their familiarity with the area. And those churches have now gone to about 18 or 20. There's about 5 on the U.S. side and about 13 on the Mexico side. And so we're very grateful for what continues to happen down there. We used to travel to South Texas annually with about 4 or 5 groups. We would have a spring, an April, and October trip that our adults would go on Wednesday through Sunday, and we would help with some construction or in some of the service projects there. Our teens now go every year in the summer. It's one of the largest activities our teens participate in, and they stay in these mission centers that we have down there. They work in the Food Bank of South Texas. They do a VBS at one of the Spanish churches. They do those service projects that we're talking about. And then, as you know, we also have the backpack drive that'll happen about midsummer, where we collect backpacks for the kiddos down there. And then in the December, we have our Angel Tree Project, where we can also go down and take part in some of those Angel Tree parties where those gifts are distributed to these children in these places. But the next map shows those circles all represent where a lot of those congregations are. So you can see those there. The McAllen is right there about in the center of the map there. It's that brown area. That's the reason that's highlighted, is because, again, from the stateside perspective. And one of those listed there is Palmview. And Palmview is where I mentioned this morning, is where the School of Preaching takes place. That's been ongoing for a long time. Ron Warpole and I have both taught in that, kind of as adjunct teachers at times. And it was started by a brother named Carol Robertson, who'd been a missionary in Honduras. And it was an evening Bible school, an evening preacher school, so people who were working could attend. They've had a lot of graduates through that program. Carol used to send out DVDs or CDs all over the world to Spanish-speaking countries as he would videotape those. And I mentioned this morning that now Jose Cabello and his son Abraham now are using the technology where they don't have to mail those physical CDs, but now people can view those online, and people can enroll in the preacher school and watch it through Zoom or other means of doing that, and also the archive of lessons that are there. We mentioned that the impact has reached Africa in the Portuguese-speaking countries there. We saw pictures of some of those graduates, and it was very exciting to see. But the next slide shows another thing that we do. And you may know monthly we have a group of ladies that meet at our church building called Hearts and Hands. And so they, right out here in this hallway, you can see all the product that they make, all the crafts, all the items that sometimes are sewn or put together. And they make these to go in a number of different places, local hospitals, children's wards, and so forth. But they also go into what many of you may know, what's called Magi boxes. And as you can see, there's the Cates there on the right. They're actually in the valley in this picture. But they are down there when one of these distributions of these Magi boxes are taking place. So there's a number of you ladies I know who are out here this morning who come on those Thursdays and stay 2 or 3 hours. And so it's a great thing. It's always on our church calendar. If you want to take off work, I promise you it would be a very fruitful experience for you to participate in that. But the next picture shows these kids getting these boxes. And you can't replace those, can you? What you see on the faces of those children And so they're opening up and discovering these items, some other things. And so I just want to say a big appreciation to the Cates and what the leadership they brought to McDermott when they came and wanted to do this. Those go also through, I think, Healing Hands International is a lot of times how those are distributed. But something else about the Valley, there's an organization called Christian Relief Fund. And they only do international work. They don't do anything stateside except one location. And they work also in the far McAllen area with the churches that we are supporting. So we're really blessed. Even Christian Relief Fund recognizes the need and the help that can be done there. And I think there's one more slide from the what we call the Angel Tree Parties. There's Jerry and Joe Nell there on your left, helping these kids get that. We advertised that to the church last December, and we only get a little handful of folks that will go, but we drive down on a Friday and come back on Sunday. And so Friday night, we participate in one of those parties there that you'll see in the center. We go to 2 or 3 on Saturday and then come back on Sunday. So watch for that this fall. We'll let the church know that opportunity. There's hardly any cost involved, but you get to see and participate in some of the joy those kids have when they participate. So there's so much more that can be said about the work in South Texas. Just wanted to highlight some of those things. But Jerry is back here, Jerry and Joe Nell, who know everything firsthand as well, and they'd love to talk to you anytime about the work. So, Brother Kevin, now for Estonia.
Mark gifted me a couple extra minutes here. I'll try not to abuse that. But you can go and pull up the first slide, or I guess I can do that. All right, perfect. So this is a map of Eastern Europe, kind of northeastern Europe here. It's surprising to me, but also not surprising to me, how often I am explaining where Estonia is to people. Because I remember back when I first learned about Estonia, I was pretty sure that it was Ethiopia. And so it's not at all the same place. But I grew up, my family was friends with Ron and Judy Warpole, and so they would come and visit on furlough at times, and I would say, man, how was Africa? And they'd say, well, we don't live there. But, so there's Estonia. It's circled on the map. It's situated to the south of Finland over the Baltic Sea there, or the Gulf of Finland, rather. And so the main population center is in the Tallinn area, right on the coast there. And it's about a 30-minute, 45-minute ferry ride to Helsinki, the capital of Finland. Starting in the 40s, Estonia and all the Baltic countries were occupied by Soviet Russia, and that lasted for 51 years until 1991. In that time period, the Soviets impressed on the people an atheistic doctrine, and they taught the school kids and they taught the adults that religion was stupid, and they, for the most part, the people believed them. However, there were still Christians in Estonia during that time, although that was primarily associated with the Russian Orthodox Church. The Russian Orthodox Church is thought of, perhaps correctly, to be a corrupt political entity that serves the Russian state even today, and even during the times of the Soviet occupation and rule of the country. But that created divide in the people that had grown up thinking that religion was stupid and foolish. And then in 1991, when the Soviet government collapsed and withdrew from the area, there was a massive power shift. And that power shift led people to feel uncertain because they'd been taught to trust the government. They'd been taught to trust the communist way, and that way had completely collapsed. All right, it's dead. All right, next slide. So this is a vista over the city here. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. One of the oldest medieval towns preserved in history, constructed around the 1400s or so. As we can see here, we don't have any buildings in the U.S. that look anything like this. But you can walk through Old Town in Estonia and see things lost in time, and you can feel like you're in this old place. However, there's also a newer part of the city, which I don't have pictured, because since the 90s, whenever it reopened back up, there was a period of development that was very helpful for the area. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide because I want to spend more time on this. Okay. Maybe, can you go to the next slide? Perfect. And we'll go back to the other slide after this. So first I want to review a little bit of updates on what the church has been doing in the last year. So in the past year was the help of special contributions that we made here for the work to help Ukrainian refugees after that crisis started last year in the spring. The church in Estonia has helped spread the gospel and support refugees for this ongoing crisis. And in this time, funds have been used to support the lives and to bring comfort to people passing through, because the country of Estonia does not have the capacity to handle the volume of refugees. There's 1.3 million people, and I believe at this time there are 50 to 60,000 Ukrainian refugees staying in Estonia, but that's pretty much what they can handle in terms of that. So many of these people go on to Poland, to Germany, to the Czech Republic. And so as they have passed through, the church in Estonia has provided comfort, prayer, relief, and love to those refugees. So that second point, growth in the church, in several of these families have been able to stay in Estonia only because of this help that we've provided, because they've had to secure lease payments of up to 6 months or even a full year of lease payments, because building owners are hesitant to rent to refugees. They think, well, this money will run out and then the government won't let me kick out these refugees because that looks bad for them. And so because of the funds we've been able to raise, they've been able to secure those places to stay and have been grafted into this church in Estonia. Some of the good that God has brought out of this crisis in the Ukraine has been that Ukraine was one of the most populated Christian areas, especially for the churches of Christ in Europe. And these Christians are not simply young people that don't care about Christ, don't know much about him, but just kind of fell in with that. These are mature Christians, very much like people I know here. I had the opportunity to hear some preaching over the fall of last year from one of those preachers, and to hear a word of thought for the Lord's Supper and prayers and other things from Ukrainian people. And the depth and the knowledge of these Christians was astounding. It was absolutely the sort of thing we could have heard here. And so one good that God has brought out of this is this dispersal of mature Christians into the center of Europe, a place where it is most difficult to cultivate this religious education. So some of these families have joined the congregation in Tallinn, and these were many of them Russian-speaking Ukrainians, which works extremely well because the Tallinn congregation is largely Russian-speaking. And so it was a natural fit for them to come be part of that. And that third point, the ongoing work of this church, the faith of these Christian families, as well as the gospel has planted families that have not yet found Christ, has strengthened this church. The church in Estonia has been able to provide a Christian culture over the last 30 years or so that provides a direct counter to the 50 years of Soviet occupation and rule that erased much of any of the Christianity that was in that country. This change in such a short time is remarkable. In this summer, they will celebrate their 29th year of Christian education to young people there, in which hundreds have gone through and have even spread out from Estonia and dispersed amongst the world. If we could go back one slide. So, in the fall of 2010, I had the privilege to go and visit many different countries in Asia. And I did that with a study abroad trip on one of these Christian colleges. And I was struck to meet Christians in so many different contexts, whether that was in China or Japan, Australia, or New Zealand. At the time, I knew and saw Christians living there, and it brought this interest to me. And so then in the spring of 2011, I was thinking I should go somewhere where there's Christians, and I should go and be with them and learn from them, but also help as I can. And my mind came to Estonia. But I only went to Estonia because I knew Ron and Judy loved the church there. And that was the only reason I ever went. And going absolutely changed my life. And not just because I met my wife there, but that was part of it, of course. Your life changing, baby. It's okay. So these questions here, and I went with my friend Ryan Carroll. We asked ourselves these questions regularly throughout the summer. We stayed for 10 weeks, and a lot of times, almost every day, it's like, well, what are we doing today? What are we supposed to do? How can I help God in Estonia? And so then this was such a period of growth for me personally, learning to think for myself, learning to self-start, learning to reach out to people and to engage in spiritual discussion. Because we are culturized, we were brought up here to not have spiritual discussions with each other because it's a taboo topic. But that summer very much broke down some of those barriers for me. And so I had that opportunity to do better than I had been doing living here. And so we asked each of these questions to ourselves frequently. I want to touch on each of them briefly. What can I do in my time there? You can meet people, you can get to know them, you can become part of their lives and teach them how you live as a Christian and ask them how they do the same. In Estonia, whenever you're there, it's very similar to here. There's different languages. But every modern convenience we're used to here is more or less available to you there. So it's a very comfortable place to travel to. In terms of preparation, what you can do is get a passport or renew it. Kyle Beard needs to remember that. And others like him. But I think Sam too, right? But yes, so get your passport, and beyond that, pray and prepare your heart and mind to do this. In terms of whether you should go somewhere else rather than here, I want to remind everybody that each opportunity, including the local opportunities we're talking about today, are great. Every one of them is worth your time and attention. This one is just another one of those. Maybe this is the one that sticks out to you and you want to do this. Great. Talk to me. Talk to somebody who knows, and let's talk about how that can start for you. So what are the church's needs in Estonia? The church's needs are very much like they are anywhere. There are established and mature Christians there. There are young Christians that are learning about faith. There are people that have not yet heard. There's opportunity to interact with, encourage, and strengthen each of those in your time that you could spend there. Now, this last question, what if I'm not good enough, was also a question that we asked often this summer. It's like, well, what if we're not even doing a good job here? And my message to that is that you don't have to be. You don't have to be good enough for this, because Christ is ready to use you. I'm reminded of this passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, when Paul is wrestling with this thorn in his flesh that prevented him from doing what he wanted to do. And Paul, referring to the Spirit, wrote this, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." So recognize that even where you recognize your own limitations, you don't need to overcome them before you go and do something for God. Christ is ready to use you. So I want to remind everybody here that the very same reasons I had to go to Estonia in the spring of 2011, if you know me or you have heard this today, you have the very same reasons I did. And it's absolutely changed my life, and not because Estonia is this magical place, although I find it to be invigorating, exciting, and awesome in every way. But it was nothing special about Estonia. It was that this was a place where I learned to give my life, where I learned to step out and to be Christian in every aspect of my life. And so that opportunity is there for you, and you have the same reasons I did. All right, thank you.
Good morning. This first slide is just simply going to be a placeholder while I talk about World Bible School. The second slide that'll come later is going to be the good stuff. The World Bible School online web-based ministry has proven to be one of the most cost-effective means of equipping Christians to fulfill the Great Commission. The ministry has taught millions of truth seekers by mobilizing tens of thousands of volunteers, Christians of all ages, to serve as study helpers who can adopt students and teach them on their own and at their own pace. World Bible School provides the tools to equip members to be involved in evangelism locally or globally. World Bible School study helpers provide Bible lessons to students and encourage and guide them to grow in faith and knowledge. At the right time, World Bible School helps study helpers connect students with local Christians for further in-person study, fellowship, and even baptism. As best I can determine, the McDermott Road involvement in the World Bible School online web-based ministry began in January of 2014. Over that time, there have been 32 study helpers here who have adopted more than 9,300 students, resulting in almost 21,000 lessons being completed, most of those in the last 3 years. There are currently over 765 actively involved students taking the lessons right now. There have been numerous baptisms. Exactly how many has been hard to determine. I was able to quickly find or document 12 in the last 3 years. I'm aware of at least 2 church plants. World Bible School is currently in the middle of a 2-year plan to reach 10 million souls globally for Jesus Christ. Since the 1st of January 2022, over 6.4 million students have been adopted. There is a great need for study helpers to be involved in teaching new students. McDermott Road has 2 local target areas, covering the areas in and around Frisco, Plano, Allen, McKinney, but we share these target areas with at least 14 other entities. We also have access to students wanting to study from around the world. I looked on my computer this morning at my target areas, which is East Africa, and there are 40 students waiting to be adopted this morning. And it stays at that pace nearly every morning. If you are interested in participating in this evangelistic ministry, you can contact me, Glenn Bailey, or Mark Bryson, or the church office. We will help you to register to be a study helper, and we will teach you how to do this. Second slide, please. This is the good stuff. All right, there are 4 photos up there this morning. The picture in the upper left corner is our new sister, Doris Omalo. She is from Homa Bay in western Kenya on the eastern shore of the Lake Victoria. And the one baptizing her is Brother Maurice Auma, elder for the Kodada Church of Christ near Homa Bay, there in Kenya. This picture was taken on February the 11th, 2023. In early April, Doris sent me a message and said that she had taken her World Bible School material and converted 9 neighbors. And she was looking to plant a church. So I sent her to Brother Maurice who immediately contacted 6 other local congregations of the church in the area, and they met with Doris and her friends, and they established the Bethel Church of Christ there near Homa Bay. The upper right photo is of Doris. She is in the middle of the front row, and I believe that is Brother Maurice on the right side of that, and with the members of the new church. The lower left photo is a picture of the plot of ground they were given and a metal building in which to assemble. The lower right photo is the latest photo I have from her, which was their assembly on Sunday morning, April the 24th. With the help of the other local congregations there, they are providing ministers, they have elders come over and help, they have deacons come over and help, but they are doing well. This just goes to show you that we cannot underestimate what God can do with your talents to spread the light in this world. God bless.
Well, good morning again. It's a real pleasure for me to get to be here and talk about the tremendous work that we're doing in Haiti, due in large part to the financial contribution from McDermott Road and its members. We are extremely blessed that many members from this congregation help individually to support children in our 10 Christian schools. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. But I wanted to give a little brief history of Hope for Haiti's Children and the organization and how it all came about. About 28 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Jean-Terard Elmera, a Haitian, was visiting here in the United States and was in the Northeast at a congregation in Connecticut where 2 individuals, Ken and Rhonda Beaver, attended church. At this church meeting on that Sunday, Mr. Elmera was not looking for financial support. What he was looking for is individuals to come and see the work and see the opportunities available for people here in the United States to get involved in the work in Haiti and to be a part of that program. From those humble beginnings of 10 kids being sponsored some 28 years ago, Hope for Haiti's Children has grown to 10 Christian schools with nearly 3,000 total children in those schools, thanks in large part to individuals such as yourself who help sponsor these kids. What I'm going to show you next is a video that was produced entirely, shot entirely by our Haitian staff with a narration underneath, and I hope you'll enjoy that.
Project Hope is our 10-year plan to strengthen the programs and services provided to all our sponsored children. The plan follows a comprehensive and sustainable framework to child development. The first goal of Project Hope is to provide sponsored students with an excellent Christian education. Currently, some schools meet in large auditoriums with partitions, which can be noisy and distracting. Project Hope efforts will construct individual classrooms for every grade with a well-trained teacher. In 2022, students in Hinch were thrilled to see a brand new school building completed. The school will now be able to expand up to the 13th grade in an earthquake-resistant facility. The construction of this school was a blessing to many families in the area whose parents worked on this project. Also, 8 new classrooms were built and 20 classrooms refurbished in our schools. In response to the overwhelming need for adequate food and clean water, a second goal of Project Hope is to ensure that all 3,000 students receive lunch at school every day and have access to clean water. Project Hope funds have repaired water wells and installed water filtration systems at several schools. A third Project Hope goal is to improve access to health care for all our sponsored children, as well as educate them about good health and hygiene. Every year, all 3,000 children receive an annual physical. In 2022, school nurses followed up with over 800 children who required additional medical, dental, or vision care. Also this past year, our children's medical clinic at the Tomazo Hope Center was furnished and in full operation. Our Haitian medical team uses this facility to treat children in the community. To provide excellent orphan care, a fourth Project Hope goal is to fund improvements at our orphanage facilities and expand our vocational training programs to provide essential skills for independent living. Project Hope funded a covered pavilion at the Kazoo Christian Orphanage where the children gather for devotionals, training classes, play, or just relax on a bench in the shade. For many years, this orphanage depended upon intermittent city power, provided only a few hours each day. Thanks to Project Hope, a solar system was installed to power lights and fans in all 12 bedrooms of the dormitory, kitchen, and dining hall. In the area of vocational training, 17 students from the orphanage are now enrolled in professional schools to become electricians, forklift drivers, backhoe operators, chefs, nurses, and lawyers. For all children, we teach them how to grow food and care for animals. Project Hope allows us to continue to invest in organic vegetable gardens, chickens, goats, and tilapia. A final goal for Project Hope is to expand our students' spiritual training. In addition to learning the Bible in school, teens grow from leadership opportunities at Saturday youth rallies and at Camp Hope, our summer leadership camp. In 2022, more than 200 teens attended Camp Hope, with 19 campers committing their lives to the Lord in baptism. 5 Saturday youth rallies provided these new leaders with an opportunity to share their faith and show their Christian love to their local community. Our staff and board regularly prioritize Project Hope efforts and direct funding to the most needed areas. We invite you to share in the joy of bringing hope to impoverished children. Your prayerful encouragement and generous financial support will bring a brighter future to the children of Haiti now and for eternity.
Let's go to the next slide, please. These are our 10 Christian schools. Every one of these schools that you see in this picture is being used this morning as the local Church of Christ in that community. And not only is it for Sunday and Wednesday, these buildings get used every day of the week. The numbers that you see to the right of the school is the enrollment of the students that are in each one of these schools. And like I mentioned earlier, there are approximately 3,000 kids in our program right now that attend these schools. Now, with Christian education being at the forefront of what we do, let me talk just a second about the national exams. The national exams are administered every year in Haiti. The national average, the pass rate for these national exams overall in the country is 83%. Hope for Haiti's Children's Schools have a pass rate of 94%. So these kids are getting a tremendous education, tremendous lunch program every day in a world-class environment there in Haiti. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here are 3 of the kids enjoying the lunch every day at school. Every child that comes to school, as mentioned, gets a lunch. So as you can imagine, for many of these kids, with this being the only meal that a lot of them receive every day, we don't need a truant officer in Haiti. These kids come to school, these parents get these kids up, and they do come, and attendance is very, very good. So these kids can get a good, healthy meal. They're able to learn and flourish in a good environment. Next slide, please. Food and water, the hot meal along with the clean water, which is essential. Every one of these 10 schools has an active, working well on the premise, which cuts down on the waterborne diseases that affect so many of them and cause a tremendous amount of problems if not treated early on. Next slide, please. Child education sponsorship, and that's why we're here today. We're very fortunate that about 25 members out of the McDermott Road congregation sponsor children. And those children are grateful to the support that you give them, but we need so much more. It costs $36 a month to sponsor a child. That's all, $36 a month. You can see what all that $36 a month covers. Their tuition and exam fees, their uniform, school books and supplies, the health care, a special gift at the end of the year. However, the lunch program is not included in that. That is funded solely by a very generous giver elsewhere. So for $36 a month, you can be a part of that program. Now, next slide, please. Let me show you some of these kids, what they look like prior to becoming sponsored kids in the HFHC program. You can see Rolanda Simeon. Here's a before and after shot after she became a child sponsorship. Next slide, please. Bequina Gabriel, before and after on her. And finally, Wisnall Dorsonville. Child sponsorship is tremendous for the growth of these kids, for the advancement of their education, and for their overall well-being. Next slide, please. Here's the sweet part of the program this morning. $432 a year, to sponsor a child, $36 a month. Can be paid either monthly, quarterly, or annually. We have been blessed again this year to receive a matching grant from the Kemper Foundation out of Chicago, Illinois, for every child that is sponsored with Hope for Haiti's Children. The Kemper Foundation will award that school an additional $432 to help with maintenance and supplies and overall repairs that need to be done at these schools. And there's always repairs that need to be done. So your gift this morning, your child sponsorship this morning, doubles for these kids. Next slide, please. Back at the back, I have two ladies helping, Christy Norris and Amy Jennings, who can help you today get a sponsored child. And you'll get updates on that child. You'll know their name. You'll know where they live, what school they attend. It will be a blessing to you, and it'll be a blessing to them. But I will say one other thing about this on the child sponsorship front. I have in our office 17 kids who are what you'd call a little bit older. They may have lost their sponsor somewhere along the line, or their sponsor couldn't care for them anymore. Everybody wants to sponsor the little boys and the little girls and make a long-term commitment to them. If you are not inclined to want to make a long-term commitment, we do have some older kids, and all you would need to do is let Christy or Amy know you would like one of those kids on the board list, and we can get you fixed up. If that speaks to your heart this morning, I hope you'll stop by, at least pick up some of the information that we have back there on the table, our most recent newsletter and financial information, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the work that we're doing in Haiti. Thank you very much.
2006, we began to investigate and explore the possibility of beginning this program called BICA, the Biblical Institute of Central America. I'm going to try this. Next one, Tim. We'll do it the old way. So this is 2 Timothy 2:2. And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people. Teach others who will be qualified to also teach others. And that's what we do at BICA. BICA is a 2-year program to train evangelists. Now, some of them become preachers, but that's not the goal. The goal is to train evangelists, people who are well equipped to be leaders in their congregations and also to teach others. So we take women as well as men, because women are great evangelists also. So our class normally has been pre-pandemic. Unfortunately, we have to talk pre and post. Pre-pandemic, we had an average attendance of 28 to 30 each year. 2-year program, graduating 15 or thereabouts each December, replaced with another 13 to 15 the next January. Post-pandemic, we're up to 8. So we're recovering. It's been tough, to be sure. The pandemic hit this area very hard. Everyone in school lost parents or aunts and uncles, and several of them had to drop out to go back and support their own families. Tim, let's go to the next one. I forget exactly what it is. Yeah, so here's our focus in the program. Again, 2 years. And so you can understand that there's a significant amount of time involved in concentrated study, specifically 3 weeks a month. 3 weeks a month are spent in class for a full day. But each weekend, each student is assigned to a congregation somewhere outside of the area that we live in. And that could be a 1-hour bus ride. It might be a 4-hour bus ride. But they'll leave on Friday afternoon and go out to their assigned congregation. They have 3-month assignments and work with them for the weekend. 1 week each month, we have a campaign. And the whole school, cooks and all, will pack up, take the kitchen equipment with them, and they will go to the location chosen for a 1-week campaign. Generally speaking, that's involved with another congregation. And then 3 or 4 times a year, we have special programs dedicated to youth outreach. Tim, let's go to the next one, please. We have great facilities. This is just one small picture to give you an idea of the facilities. There are 2 buildings, one across from each other like this. We have apartments for married students. We have an administration building. And we're pretty current on the technology. Some of our instruction actually comes to us from here in the States by way of Zoom. Let's go to the next one, Tim. Here's some examples, pictures actually from some of the youth outreach activities. Hundreds of young people come to these. Next one, please, Tim. Here's what a campaign looks like. Nicaragua is said to be the 3rd poorest country in our hemisphere, and so most of the people there are poor. And our folks on a campaign go door to door, and they'll knock doors and attempt to initiate a Bible study. It's surprising to me. I was there for a campaign last year, and it's surprising that we are well received. Maybe this is a confession, perhaps you're different, but I'm not really excited when somebody comes to my front door. But there it's okay. And so they'll knock the door and they'll say, hey, how's it going? And by the way, could we talk about the Bible? Well, sure, let's talk about the Bible. And you know, before you know it, we'll be in the house, sitting down, answering questions, talking about the Bible. And of course, that's not every house. That's not every house, but it's surprisingly effective. Let's go to the next slide. So the campaigns are effective. These are just a couple of 3 pictures. Go ahead with the next one there, Tim. Okay, 1 picture of the campaigns. So this is where we are year to date. Thus far, from January to the end of April, we have 63 baptisms, 25 restorations, and 1 new church plant. Could I have the next slide? I'm pretty sure I know. No, I don't know what that next slide is. I'm saving that for Tom. Tom's got the next slide. I forgot about that. I gave Tom that slide. He's going to share that with us later this evening. I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Not because I shine on my own, right? You were here first service, you know what's next, don't you? Because I reflect the light. That's my job. Do you ask yourself, after presentations like these, do you ask yourself, what can I do? The question we should ask ourselves, and I ask myself this question, am I doing what I could be doing? Now, you might ask the question, well, am I capable of doing anything? Okay, I'm not able to answer that question for you. Paul answers the question for you. I won't answer, I'll let Paul answer. For we are God's handiwork. We're created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Now, I don't want to be heavy, but let me be honest. He had something in mind for you. He had something in mind for you. And so you need to ask the question, am I doing what He has in mind for me? We can't all go to Nicaragua. We can't all go to Haiti. We can sponsor a child. We can't all go to Estonia. You can do World Bible School. You can do it in your pajamas. You can. You can do it in your pajamas. So the challenge today is to ask yourself, am I doing what God has planned for me to do? That's the question.